자, 그래서 오늘은 이제 스크래치라고 하는 브루어리를 갑니다. 제가 여태까지 뭐 많은 브루어리를 갔지만 그 브루어리에서 느꼈던 경험만 따지자면 저는 정말 여기가 1위라고 할 수 있을 정도로 정말 좋아했던 브루어리인데, 과연 두 번 다시 올 수 있을까 하는 마음으로 갔었다가 이번에 오니까 또 가고 싶어가지고 차 렌트해가지고 가고 있습니다. 세인트루이스에서 한 1시간 반 정도 차를 몰면 나오는 곳인데, 진짜 오는 길이 완전 촌이라고 부를 수도 없는 정말 그냥 허허벌판 밖에 없는데, 이 나무와 이 자연들이 정말 너무 아름답고, 지금 5분 정도 남았는데 그때 생각이 나가지고 너무 좋네요. 가보도록 하겠습니다. 장모님 감 찍으시죠. 진짜 이 압도적인 경관. 저번에는 여름에 왔어서 되게 푸르렀는데 지금은 좀 이 단풍 느낌이 또 너무 좋네요. 가보도록 하겠습니다. 와, 옐로였나?
Started out on this barrel and a half system right here.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Barrel and a half.
So we were brewing on this until about 2 years ago, I would say, and then we switched over entirely to the wood-fired system, except for some really small special projects. I tell people this is like a glorified homebrew setup.
Yes.
We were using silicone hoses and little chugger pumps, and this was what we brewed on, 3 days a week for 6, 7 years.
3 days a week?
Yeah, 2-3 days a week.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So it was the cheapest thing we could do. So this is our old fermentation room. We still use this. None of these fermenters are jacketed. Again, this is just shoestring budget. Yeah, so we control the fermentation temperature just by the ambient temperature in here. Right now on our wood-fired system, it's 7 or 8 barrels, and this is like 4. So these fermenters we're using to do smaller projects, or we take stuff out of barrels and put them in here, and maybe we'll take a little bit of a portion off of a big batch and add, say, fruit to it or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, so this is the new space?
Yes. So just in the last couple of years, we've built this all out. You can feel that it's cool back here, so we don't keep this or cool too much, just enough that it doesn't freeze or get too hot in here. But we are now filling these 7 or 8 barrel fermenters, and these are jacketed with glycol. We can't heat them up, but we can cool them. So we still are kind of bound a little bit by the seasons. So we're kind of moving into our lagers season. We'll start to do lagers pretty much now, and then until it gets so hot that it's just hard to keep it cool, kind of late spring. And that's when we switch over to like sours and saisons. So this is now kind of crazy, but this is what we are mashing in right now. These are our mash tubs.
Okay, I heard you guys are using the wood fire system, but I never thought it would look like this.
Yes.
It's just a big barrel.
It's just big barrels. So these are 135 gallon puncheons. We drilled a hole to put a valve in at the bottom, and a false bottom just sits right on the bottom of this. Yeah, it's not in right now, but it does slide right inside.
Then how do you...
We can't heat it up. We just run hot water in to do a single infusion
like
mash.
kombu?
Yes, exactly. Right.
That's really interesting.
Eventually we might get a bigger mashing setup, but at the moment this works pretty well, and it costs us like $600, so you can't beat it.
Yeah. So they are both mash tuns?
They're both mash tuns. So they do about 4 barrels worth of mash each. We'll mash both in at the same time in here, and then we'll run the beer out here. Sorry, it's a little bit of a mess.
No.
We've got
That's fine.
stuff coming and going. So we'll run the beer out here. And this is our kettle.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, from the outside it's a little bit, a little beat up, but if you can feel free to walk up this ladder and look inside it. And it's just a nice copper kettle on the inside.
Wow. 여기서 맥주를 만든다고?
Aaron worked pretty closely with this guy in Virginia who had never made kettles for brewing before. And when we were starting to brew over a wood fire, we didn't know any other breweries in the US that were doing that. So we were kind of trying to find inspiration. There's a brewery in Belgium that still does, one in Germany, trying to figure out how we wanted to create this system ourselves in a way that would be efficient and would work well. But Aaron really was the one who came up with the design for this and worked with this guy who had only ever made these kettles before. So this is the biggest kettle he had ever made
Wow,
before.
then this might be his like big step for him.
Right, exactly. It was a really big step.
Wow.
And people normally here use this to make apple butter, so almost like a long cooked applesauce. So yeah, we just build a fire under here. There's quite a bit of space under here for a fire. And then we use this, these are pallet scraps that we get from a pallet maker who works near here. And that's what we use to fire our pizza oven too. So a little stack of that in here will keep this thing fired once it's boiling for like 10 minutes or so.
Do you think it's a bit different with other kind of heating systems?
I think so. The reason that we wanted to do this wood-fired system was that we tasted this extra little bit of like kettle caramelization.
Like scorching?
Yeah, we've never experienced scorching, even though we do get it pretty hot. But it kind of just adds this extra bit of body and like kind of sweetness without being overly sweet. But like for instance, we make a Pils that's just straight 100% Pilsner, you know, 4.7 or something alcohol, and we sometimes feel like it almost tastes a little bit like it was decocted just because it gets that extra bit of heat on there and that extra bit of kettle caramelization that adds some body the way that a decoction often does.
It must be tough to brew in this kind of season.
Yes, it is, and we for a while we didn't even have a roof over this thing, so we could only brew when it wasn't raining or snowing, but now we can brew in all seasons. But it does get cold for sure. We have, if you like look over here, these are our hop trellises. So they're obviously all been harvested so far. This year. But when they're in season, we'll harvest them all and put them into a wet hop beer. We have some wet hop beers on right now, actually.
You have wet hop beer too?
Yeah, yeah. So we use our hops for wet hopping in season, and then the rest of our hops come from a Illinois farm.
Wow, that's really local.
Yeah. Yeah, all of our hops come from Illinois, and all of our grain comes from our closest micro malt stir-fees in Indiana.
Malt too?
Yeah, yeah, and he sources as much as he can from local farmers.
Wow.
And our greenhouse over there has a lot of stuff that goes into our kitchen, and then some stuff that goes in the beer too.
And for the mushroom beers, do you actually forage them?
We do.
Like in this kind of
literally right behind the building here.
Really?
So we didn't have a great harvest this year, but usually in like July or August, right behind this building, the chanterelle mushrooms are everywhere.
Really?
So in a good year, we can get 100 to 120 pounds of mushrooms.
But I heard this year that wasn't so good.
It
right?
wasn't so good.
That's
yeah,
so
we got
sad.
maybe half or a little less. Yeah. So.
Do you have any barrels?
Oh yes, yeah. Let me show you.
Wow.
Should move this out of the way for you. So we actually really like these bigger puncheons, which is the same size we made our mash tun out of. So we're kind of hoping to actually transfer all over to just these bigger puncheons. So these ones here behind you are actually empty because we're in the process of sort of finishing using these ones, getting rid of them, and then switching to these ones. This is about all we honestly can handle at our scale. We make less than 300 barrels a year. So
that's small.
it's very small, and it's too hard to keep these in as good a condition as we want. Fooders over here from Fooder Crafters, they were little.
I love them.
Yeah, they're great. Now look at this one. This is the best. So this is actually a 45-gallon little tiny puncheon. It looks like maybe it goes through the wall, but it doesn't. It's just this little thing right here.
It's cute.
Most of it's cute. Yeah, and most of it is just wood right here. So
They even make these kind of small ones.
this was they made this out of scraps for us of a bigger project that they made for somebody else. But
Wow.
it fit our size.
That's cool. How long do you barrel age your
Leave
beer?
stuff in here? At least a year, and some things 2 to 3 years, depending on. But we haven't done any spontaneously fermented stuff, so we don't feel the need to keep it going necessarily for 3 years. But I would say like 1 to 2 years is like kind of the sweet spot of what we do.
They're mostly your like saisons and sours, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, a really big mix of different flavors. You can see blackberry lavender, wild carrot, grapevine, hickory bark, cedar and oak. So.
You were just a home brewer and you just started pro brewing here, right?
Right.
So like these barrel aging must be first for you.
Yes, it was for sure. I'd never done it before, and I still feel like I'm learning with it. It's a different animal. You
Oh,
know,
really?
it's a totally different kind of process. And then you can see too, these are locked in place. Like we can't take these out and put them back. So we don't really have a way to clean them. So we just, you know, try to get as much beer out as we can and then we refill them again. Yeah.
Oh, so it's like stuck here?
Right, exactly. It's stuck in place. Yeah. Let me show you the serpent room upstairs
Oh
too.
yeah, please.
Kind of an art installation.
So pretty.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not always open, so maybe it was.
Do you have any, should I say, concept for those kind of?
So our friend was the one who did all of the art here. His name was Brett, and we basically said we're going to be opening up this space. It's overflow seating in an event space. Do whatever you want. So this is what he came up with. Yeah.
So cool.
And this is kind of his style. He does these kind of sculptural works too.
Yeah.
He has a lot of these like lines in his arms. He said he thought there was 20,000 lines in the ceiling alone.
Drawing.
Yeah. Yep. This tub table over here is pretty cool. It's sort of like become kind of iconic in this room.
이거 봐. 넬름.
봤어.
와우. 들어가보죠.